Hello, I am Goose, and wow, I did not think I was going to like this movie as much as I did. I wasn't expecting to give much of a damn about Transformers, so that was a pleasant surprise. Jumping on the Transformers train a little late here, but that's whatever. If it wasn't obvious, recently I went out to watch Transformers 1, because I guess I needed a reminder why I don't really see movies in theaters anymore. Anyways, it's been a moment since my last video on a movie. I meant a real movie. So I think it's time to talk about something I like again. Let's just get right into it, how's about it? Also, this is obvious, but this video will reference plot points and stuff I liked from the movie, so if you were planning on seeing the movie spoiler-free, don't watch this video. Not until you've seen the movie. Obviously, I want your view, but I don't want to ruin your viewing experience. Okay, no more warnings. Let's roll out. First things first, let's start with a very brief plot synopsis for the people who did not heed my warning but wanted to watch my video without seeing the movie anyways. Don't say I didn't warn you. I'll try and keep this quick. All the Transformers live on planet Cybertron, and in the city of Iacon, there's a little mining robot without the powered transform named Orion Pax, who might look a tad familiar. He's looking into some history the robo-government doesn't want him to, so he gets chased around a little before being saved by his also familiar-looking friend D16. Their leader, Sentinel Prime, calls for a celebratory race after fighting off their nemesis, the Quintessons. Our two little robo-guys end up getting into the race to prove that they're
more than meets the eye.
After almost winning, they are rewarded with a demotion to garbage incineration with a guy who is really upset with miners. Also, a little side note, I know that they mean the Energon miners, but it's just very entertaining every time other characters exclaim our two main characters' jobs.
I'm sorry, are those miners in the...
Miners! Those are miners!
Here, there are miners!
There's miners in the race!
Miners!
I don't believe it! The miners!
The miners!
Godless miners.
Anywho, while in garbage incineration, they meet B-127, who unintentionally shows Orion the coordinates to a location on the surface where all their questions will be answered. Probably. So they get on a cargo train to the surface, are almost turned in by their former boss Alita, who Orion and D16 were the cause of the former part after she was demoted, but she ends up completing the 4-bot squad to go on this journey for answers. Only issue is, once they get there, our heroes do not like the answers they get. Sentinel Prime was tricking them! All the stuff they've been mining has been going to the Quintessons. It is very clear how this affects the main cast. They want Sentinel Prime gone. Some via more aggressive means, but in that cave where their questions are answered, Alpha Trion, one of the original Primes, which I can't really get into right now because I'd rather you just go see the movie to get the whole story, but basically, he gives them their own transformation cores and they end up making their way back to Iacon to stop Sentinel Prime themselves with their new transformation powers, collecting an army of other fed-up robots along the way. Only issue is, upon defeating Sentinel Prime, D16 wants to kill him, whereas Orion Pax just wants him brought to justice. One thing leads to another, D16 kills Sentinel Prime, nearly kills Orion Pax when he tries to save Sentinel Prime. D16 drops Orion into this big-ass hole in Cybertron and then tries to get the Iacon citizens to follow his lead. However, the ghosts of the Primes, I'm not really sure what they're doing there. I don't know what they are, but they liked Orion's selfless act and end up giving him a second chance as Optimus Prime, granting him the Matrix of leadership and way more power. Enough to fight D16 out of Iacon, in fact, banishing him for good, while Orion brings the city back to its former glory with the intent to stop the Quintessons, but also making a very powerful enemy in D16, who had stolen Sentinel Prime's transformation core, turning himself into Megatron. Obviously, I left some stuff out, but that's so you'll actually watch the movie yourself. There's so much stuff I didn't even mention, like Starscream. It's really worth watching. I wouldn't be making this video if I thought it was boring. I only make videos on movies I think are really good or really bad. Most boring or mediocre movies aren't usually worth talking about. Anywho, all this origin business that happened in this movie was totally new territory to me. The only Transformers movies I've seen are the live-action Michael Bay ones, so I've never really seen any authentic Transformers story, as in like, in-depth backstories or whatever. Well, actually, Transformers 1 was produced by Michael Bay, so his will lives on in a way. Wait, he's not dead? Why am I talking about him in past tense? Moving on, as I mentioned just now, Transformers 1 is a sort of backstory film about the origins of Optimus Prime and Megatron, who are known as Orion Pax and D16 respectively until the tail end of the film. And the two of them are both done really well in terms of writing and casting. The plot of the movie revolves around Orion and D16 learning the truth about Cybertron, and their split reactions and plans of action after realizing this fact is a really interesting part of the movie to me. Especially considering they both sort of did what the opposite bot wanted by the end. Orion wanted to prove that he was more than meets the eye and actually see some change, but in the end he ends up upholding the status quo. Granted, a status quo that's no longer corrupt, but things are still as they were for the most part. D16, on the other hand, was the one who was obsessed with protocol and following the rules, but by the end of the movie, he ends up leaving Iacon to form the Decepticons. Just a little interesting thing I noticed. I might be crazy trying to piece that together. Also, these two robots are a little bit gay sometimes, but I'm sure in the future the history books will write it down as a good friendship. As for casting, I was not expecting Chris Hemsworth, of all people, to be able to do such a good Optimus voice. He sounds strikingly similar to Peter Cullen's Prime. My sister was quite surprised when she found out Thor was voicing him. And as for Megatron, basically any role Brian Tyree Henry is given is going to make for a good character. Shout out to Bullet Train, by the way. Y'all should have seen this movie ages ago by now. Honestly, it was a little bit jarring at first, didn't feel particularly fitting, but as D16 became more and more aggressive and hateful, I began to think, oh, there's Megatron, okay. I've just never really heard Megatron speak in a more pleasant tone, so I didn't recognize him at first. Also, I haven't really mentioned them yet, but B-127 and Alita are both very good characters in their own right. I just wanted to give special focus on the two big important guys in the movie. Alita was a very fun character, and just like Hemsworth, I didn't realize that she was voiced by Scarlett Johansson until after the movie. Very good voice acting on her part, made the character very likable when she could have been very stiff and annoying. And B-127 was a character I thought was going to be very annoying going off of the trailers, but he ended up being like the funniest character in the whole movie, especially the bit with him calling himself Badassatron. I was not expecting it to be so funny the fourth time around, but it actually got a good laugh out of me. The movie overall was really funny, honestly. A lot of good physical humor and clever writing, at least to me. I know I'm not the smartest guy, but I know good writing when I see it. Or, I guess I hear it. But yeah, the movie was, like, way better than anyone anticipated. I think a big fault of that was whatever moron made the trailers. Whoever made those shoehorned in the very few cliche and corny moments of the film together and barely included anything that would pull someone in. Like, he's right behind me, isn't he? And, that just happened. Levels of eye-rolling, exhausting movie tropes. I ended up brushing off that stuff because there was so little corny stuff in the movie, but including it as the prominent part of the trailers makes me feel like they wanted it to fail. If people hadn't made such an uproar about how good this movie was on Twitter, I wouldn't have seen it. To anyone that makes movie trailers, you are directly responsible for how many people see these movies. Please, please, please make the trailers good. Okay, let's see, what else? Oh, it's animated. Let me talk about how it looks. No complaints about the animation quality. Transformers 1 was animated by the same studio that did Rango, so of course it's gonna look stellar. The main thing that took some getting used to was like the mesh faces, mostly the mouths. I've only ever seen Transformers with super detailed and complicated machine faces, so it was a new change of pace seeing them look more like action figures. Looks really good though. Naturally, the coolest part to me about these movies is the transforming. It looks cool as hell, and the way it's animated, it makes me think that it must feel good as fuck for these robots to transform. The creative use of transforming in the combat sequences was also super cool, but I guess that's the case for most Transformers stuff. Maybe I should have gotten into this series earlier. Also, I know it's not a thing with this movie specifically, but I do think it's very funny that the giant transforming robots can just turn into regular Earth cars. I don't care that that's the case, doesn't break my immersion or anything, it's just very funny to me. And even if the movie was mediocre in terms of script, like hypothetically, I still would have eaten it up because super fighting robots are just badass, especially when they're animated well. The Arachnid Transformer was my favorite in the movie by far, for anyone who was wondering. One last thing I have no idea where to put, but I wanted to include it in the video. The way the film is laid out in terms of like story and stuff and all the different locations and the stuff they're doing in each location, Transformers 1 would have gotten a fire PlayStation 2 tie-in game back in the day. If only it had come out like 20 years earlier. In terms of stuff I didn't like about the movie, I think there's one major thing, and two things I just kind of noticed and thought were things I didn't like, but ended up being things that made sense and I got over. Or just a weird thing I couldn't find any other place to mention. The first thing I wasn't a huge fan of was how fast D16 flew through the Megatron pipeline. It felt like a switch got flipped instantly and he became like a completely new evil character right away. The only time he really got a chance to show it was when Orion got in his way when he was about to kill Sentinel Prime. But it just felt like he had a completely new personality after he realized the truth. It's not a huge thing, though. It didn't kill the movie for me. It's just something I noticed that I kind of just settled as another example of the branching path between Orion and D16. The other thing was that Sentinel Prime was kind of a lame villain. But when I got around to thinking about it after the movie, that's sort of the point. The only reason he's in the movie is to piss D16 off enough to become Megatron, so he's just sort of a catalyst for the future relationship of the two main characters. The last thing is, well, I don't even know how to describe it. Is it just me, or are animated movies for kids, like, doing more swearing? Don't get me wrong, it's not something I'm particularly worried about, so don't start typing about how I'm some super uptight foul or something. It's just something I've noticed recently. In The Incredibles 2, sacrilege to even mention that movie on here, I know, but they say hell in that movie, in the context of promoting the hell out of something. In Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, Puss says, "What the hell are you talking about?" And in this movie, they say "what the hell" and "badass" multiple times. I'm not mad, I'm not like going super god religious mode, I'm just curious about what changed in the public scope to allow these swear words in movies aimed at kids. Actually, is Transformers 1 aimed at kids? I mean, the film tackles subjects like slavery, political corruption, has like tons of gruesome deaths, including dismemberment and decapitations. Although I guess they are robots. But in the end, it is animated, so I guess it is for kids. Animation is for stupid, dumb, idiot babies after all. Anywho, that's besides the point. What I'm trying to get at is I think this movie is a delight. Something actually worth showing your kids, not some lame-ass slop that doesn't provoke any emotion. Transformers 1 may be a little corny at first, but it quickly leaves that behind and becomes a really engaging, entertaining, and action-packed movie that completely took me by surprise. I suppose the major lesson I learned from this movie is that I should just stop watching movie trailers altogether and actually see movies for themselves. The post-credits scene was fun too, although I wish it was just at the end of the movie and I didn't have to sit through the credits for it. Really wish Marvel didn't make that a thing that other studios just do now. Anywho, can't wait for Transformers 2! Now then, this is the end of the video, so check out some cool and awesome fan art before I close up shop, okay? Follow me on my social medias, Twitter and TikTok. Links in the description, as well as a few other social medias that I don't really use anymore, but I don't know. I think it's cool to keep them there. I do some decent posting on Twitter and TikTok, though. Join the Discord server, the Hoose of Goose. There's some fun chats going on in there. See, look, I called someone a moron and they sent me my home address. Very fun! Also, become a channel member. I call them headliners because I think it sounds cooler. You get some perks, like a role in the Discord server that grants you access to a private channel, access to some videos a day early, and votes on what videos I post next. What else is there? Commission me, I guess? As I write this script, I'm still looking for a job, so money's kind of getting tight. It's like a month since I moved into my new place. So, DM me on Discord or Twitter and we can conduct business regarding music or art. Okay, I think that's everything. My name is Goose, I thank you very much for watching, and, don't forget to floss. Seriously, that shit's important. Now get lost!